All right, guys, let's welcome Sonny Sandoval of P.O.D. to KNOTFEST here. Veritas out May 3rd, man. Killer new record. I've been listening to the album the last couple of days, man. I'm loving it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. That's what's up.
And if I'm doing the math correct, this is album number 11.
That's what they're telling me, let alone some live and some EPs and stuff like that. But studio-wise, I think so, yeah.
So when it comes to being this many albums deep, I mean, are you still full of ideas, or are you like, I think I've already sang about this, or I think I've already said that in a song? I mean, how much are you having that, or do you have just a wealth of knowledge for lyrics?
No, I think we're just still having fun. You know what I mean? But I think we always write in the moment. It's not. I don't sit around with a book full of lyrics or a journal full of lyrics and we just smash it onto some guitar riffs. It's always the season. And I think we all came out of a crazy season this last 5 years. But I think there's always enough to say, and for us, this is part of who we are. It's not just entertaining, it's making music, it's making art. And we've been doing that for a long time. So the fact that we could still do it all these years later is inspiring enough.
So you don't have a notes app or a notepad or anything when you just get a line comes in your head while driving and stuff like that?
Yeah, that I have a notes app where I could just hit it real quick and then speak in a line or a cool phrase or something I think of, but it's always just floating in the back of my head. And then when it's actually time to sit down, I'll take a look and be like, okay, that's cool. But I like the music to kind of, put you in the mood and kind of lead the direction of lyrics and lead the directions of melodies, and it just kind of just happens, and that's what makes it fun still.
If someone got a hold of your phone, would they think you're a psychopath for all this stuff?
I always think that. all these random unfinished lyrics or something. I always wonder, man, if somebody ever found my phone or whatever, they're gonna have to go through this and decode it and be like, what the heck was he talking about?
This guy? Yeah, archaeologist.
He was a psycho.
Yeah, archaeologists 3,000 years from now are gonna find your phone and be like, I don't know what was going on with civilization at the time.
They're like, yeah, this guy wasn't stable.
Let's dive into a couple songs, man. Obviously the record starts out kind of a Jane's Addiction feel, man. That with the Veritas, the
nice catch
spoken word there. Was that an inspiration, or is that just a happenstance?
I mean, it kind of happened, but then obviously we had that reference to, and then being Jane's fan as well was like, you know what? Nice. Let's just keep it. Or maybe it subconsciously popped up in there,
Yeah, I hit play on it. I was like, hey, all right, I see where they're going with this. But
nice.
But yeah, I mean, obviously Drop having Randy Blythe on it. A couple of great guests on the album, and obviously kind of out of the box guests, I guess you would say. It's kind of crazy to have Randy on a P.O.D. album,
right.
But it works, man. And so kind of talk about, getting Randy on and maybe even getting Tatiana on a couple of tracks and how those came to be.
For sure, man. Yeah, I think that was an afterthought too, that how people would trip out like, oh, Randy, and we have all these different cliches about P.O.D. and then, this new metal and then whatever. And then here you have Randy on a track. So that was just kind of the bonus on top, you know what I mean? But it really wasn't that well thought out. It was just, we had met Randy on the Shiprock 2022, and surprising that all the shows that we've done in the past and festivals and stuff that we've never really met each other. But I mean, he's a real sweetheart. I kind of facilitated getting HR from Bad Brains on that cruise to perform and stuff. And then, he's super close with Randy. So me and Randy were just kind of chaperoning him the whole time and looking out for him. And that's when we just kind of bonded, and then I'd always followed his story and I read his book when I came home. And just really got to know him as a person, sweetheart, and then it's not like we said, hey, we should have Randy on the song. I think we were just thinking through it.
Right.
And if you listen to all P.O.D. records, it's like we've always featured legends, or we've featured people that we respect in the industry now, and it's always been a highlight for us to do that. And it was just a thought, I think Marcus and I were sitting there and we're like, you think Randy would want to do it? And I'm like, let me text him, So I text him, as simple as it is, but like, hey, we got a track, dude, no pressure. Would you ever be down? and he said, send it to me. So I sent it to him, and then he wrote back immediately. He was like, I'm in. And I said, sick.
Nice.
And how it works now is it's easy as this. You send them the track. We all have a microphone at home. You know what I mean? We have some software. We plug it in, send over the tracks, and then mix it and figure it out later. And I mean, he's Randy. It's professional.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
No, well, just staying on Randy for a second, and you kind of brought up his book and his story, and obviously the prison time. And around that time, were you nervous about playing live, like even in other countries and things like that? Because obviously a P.O.D. shows as a high energy show, and there's probably stage divers, and one wrong guy hitting you the wrong way, and you push him, and were you nervous about that at all?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say nervous to the point of not doing it, but all of a sudden, it's a thought in the back of your head, and then you're like, wait a minute, how could this happen? And we've been playing these hardcore shows, rock shows forever. This is a fluke. You know what I mean? This is like someone's making a mistake here, And I remember even like seeing the clips and stuff and be like, no, dude, there's no way, man. That's just a show.
Yeah.
Like we've done worse, you know what I mean? Like that was nothing. Like we've got in there, in our hardcore shows and kind of, threw some fisticuffs once in a while. You know what I mean? This was nothing like that.
Yeah.
So it was pretty, it's always in the back of your mind. And then especially, touring over in Europe and stuff and being, not really knowing what's going on. So that was a scary time.
Yeah, it was definitely a wild time. I remember watching those videos and kind of watching them slow motion football instant replay and trying to see what exactly happened on stage like that. And like you said, man, as soon as you saw it, you're like, no, that's just a show.
Yeah.
That's
or it was never even intentional. I mean, I've pushed guys harder than that just because it's like they push me just as hard. Right. It's like, yeah, you give it back. It's just, that's the rules. So if a kid runs up on stage, I'll push him, not to intentionally hurt him, just more like saying, dude, thanks. Like, good job. Way to get up here. Like, I appreciate you. I don't know how you made it past that big bodyguard, but good job, And there's no ill intention, man. It was just a bad rap.
And then on to Tatiana from Ginger. How did she come to get on the album?
So her and just the Ginger Cat, they're just part of the P.O.D. family. You know what I mean? Her husband, Alex Lopez, who played with Suicide Silence forever. He's actually been filling in on drums for us for, I'd say, the past 2 years. And so same thing, we finished that song and we recognized how big the chorus was, and it was this gang vocal. And then we were like, we knew that we needed a female vocal to kind of round it out and just make it a complete we, this unification. And then, but at the time of recording it was actually when everything had just started with Russia and Ukraine. So that was never a thought until she actually got there. And then we started kind of discussing it, and it was like, oh, this song just brought on a whole new meaning, So little sentimental value there. But I mean, she rounded off the song nicely, and you hear her voice. And then obviously in the bridge when she screams, it's like there's no one like Tatiana. So yeah, just an honor to have them both. And then,
it's kind of wild. Probably going to get crushed in the comment section for that. How did you not know she's married to the drummer? Like I'm like, did you call her? And they're like, no, she was at band practice.
I think every metalhead knows that she's married. They just don't want to believe that she's married.
They did put two and two together.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's a wild time. Lies we tell ourselves. I was kind of listening to it today, trying to find a meaning in it and trying to figure out where you were going with it. And I had two ideas and they could actually be the same. Obviously a little bit of mental health, a little bit of social media, almost like it's like just what you're showing the world is not who you really are, and the lies we tell ourselves and things like that. Am I on to something or way off? Where am I on that one?
No, most definitely. I think it's a combination of it all. I had read I don't even know if it was a quote. I think it was just a thought, but it says, it was kind of on the lines of the individual who lies to another individual hates that person, basically is what they're saying. When you lie to somebody, you hate them. And so, but it goes to to this theme of we're lying to ourselves. Do we hate ourselves? But it's also those everything that we see. It's that small voice that's telling us, hey, you're not good enough. You're not this. And we live in a time now. I do a lot of work with young people. We live in a time now where, the statistics of depression and anxiety. I mean, those words didn't even exist when I was a kid. It's not that the symptoms and all that stuff didn't exist, but it wasn't. Now it's just that's all you hear. The suicide rate is up. It's something that is a lot more common and discussed. So I think we've always touched a little bit on mental illness and suicide, and just because we've been around a lot of, we've been around it all, and we're just one of those bands that has always said like, hey, we understand what you're going through, but we can make it through this. You can make it through this. I think I've gone through this situation enough times, not only close and personal, but in the business and the industry, you see a lot of it where it's just like, you want to grab that person and say, nah, dude, there's still tomorrow. I believe that just as a man of faith. There's a scripture that says that joy comes in the morning. And I believe that with all my heart. It doesn't mean that today's not hard, but that's a promise from God that joy will come in the morning. So to me, that's saying, hang on, hang on. Today might be tough, but that's why we wait. That's why we're going to wait around for that new sunrise. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because as soon as that sunrise hits, it's a different day.
Yeah, I think that you and I probably grew up in the same situation of if you started feeling down or depressed or whatnot, it's more of a knock it off, or kind of a,
Right.
or your friends,
what are you thinking?
Maybe, calling you a name or something to kind of get you out of it. But I mean, I can also see that with social media and things like that. If I had social media as a kid, insecurities and everything else just amplified, it's where, when you're a kid, you only need one or two really close friends that, that egg you on and are there for you and things like that. But, when it comes to social media and, you want thousands upon thousands of followers and, you want to make this and that. And then next thing you know, you've got, hundreds of people talking shit about you or whatnot in the comment section. I mean, that I don't know if I could have handled that as a kid.
No. And you're paying attention to that. I think that's the problem. People they're identified now by their social media and how many likes they get, and I don't know if it's an incredible documentary. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called The Social Dilemma. And it's talking about, for instance, most the statistics are higher in young females because they can post a picture of themselves and you can have thousands of people say, dude, you're so beautiful. You're so smart. You're so cool. You're the best. And the one person that says, you're so fat, you're so ugly, that's all they see. And that's scary. And I mean, my kids are I have 2 adult kids but I still have a teenager, and it's like, I don't know how kids do it. It's tough, but we have to guard our kids. We have to protect our kids, mentally, just spiritually, soul wise, what's fed into their own souls, so it's tough on social media. So I think everybody just needs to be aware that this is fake. It's not real. And this wants to destroy you. Yeah. Now, how you navigate through that is going to be, on you. Use wisdom, but it's here to destroy you.
Yeah, it's a wild thing out there, man. Trying to navigate comments and just trying to find, your people, your circle. I mean, you grew up, cousins and things like that. Playing music with your friends and your cousins, and then things like that. Finding your people, and then now. I mean, I've thought about it so many times, like how often I would have went out to socialize as opposed to staying in my house and like dealing with an online community. You know what I'm saying? Like would I have been a gamer? Would I have been a, someone maybe like a Discord or anything like that, just online with maybe like-minded metalheads rather than going out with the punk kids. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to, if I would have had those experiences as a kid.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not like you can look at either one and say, well, this is wrong. And this is just, it's not good, because in all of that stuff, there's a balance, it's like, I'm not saying, hey, don't play video games, but I'm saying, hey, dude, as much as you play football online, go outside and throw the football around. I'm not going to say, don't play football online or on your video game, because then you're just going to cause other problems, but if it's like, hey, there's a balance of it, and but you see that even socially, why go and be immersed into the real world when we have just as much real world right now? You know, I used to go before all of this technology. I was just talking about this on an interview, how cool it was to, you know, they're going to fly you out to London and you're going to do a week full of press. And we would sit in a hotel and guys and gals would come and we do interviews all day long. Like, this is nuts, you know? So now you talk to some of these new school guys that are just starting to band. They're like, used to do what? I'm like, yeah, back in the old days, you know, the good old days, you know, but now I'm doing interviews on Zoom, right? You know, which is also cool. But I can sit back and say, man, how great was it to just be able to get out? But this is technology, and this is where we're at now. So, you know, obviously there's a lot of great things that come from it, but just as many bad things that you have to be aware of.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of kids and things like that, the Youth of the Nation Foundation. How did that get started? And you know, I see that you're kind of helping kids around. What is it? Maybe the San Diego area, and maybe some scholarships, things like that. So talk about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, thanks, man. I mean, I started it right before COVID, and the whole intention, and now even still, our long-term goal is to have a building, and the way I kind of summarize it as easy as possible, it's kind of like a YMCA, which I'm on the board here in my old neighborhood. I'm on the YMCA board over here. It's kind of like having that building, but not so much for athletes. You know, I want to have music and art, and I want to tap into the music and art world for these kids that, you know, would normally not have access to. But I want to do it in my neighborhood. And so, you know, it's a big dream. It's going to cost a lot of money, but somehow, some way I'm going to figure it out. And, you know, I want to have a recording studio. I want to have art rooms, you know, music rooms where I just know if you take this ghetto kid that, you know, he's never seen this stuff, but wants to play guitar, and you stick him in a guitar room with the best guitars and the best amps and, you know, everything that's like, it's going to grab his attention a little longer, you know? And even if it's not to make a career out of, just to keep these kids off the street, to keep them busy, to keep the creativity flowing, even if it's just, we're talking about mental health, you know, there's just been proven fact that, you know, these kids that are involved in sports, or these kids that are using their hands and their fingers and their writing or their drawing, they're more likely to be healthier, you know, physically and just mentally. And so it's something I want to do for my community. I've done a lot of stuff outside my community, but this is one thing that's really focused, and I want it to be right in the neighborhood, and I want it to be free, because not every kid can afford that, you know? So I'm doing my best. If all these rich rock stars out there want to give to my foundation, then by any means, you know, throw some money this way, and we'll make sure that the kids in my neighborhood, you know, I know where it's going, and I know the help that they're getting.
What's the best way for people to donate to that? Do you have a site? Yeah.
You can go to it's Youth of the Nation .foundation, and obviously it has a little bit of some of the stories and stuff. And we're on Instagram, and I try to. I'm so bad at that, you know, but I'm learning now, because I've been able to do a lot of cool stuff. But when you're doing charity work, and when you're, you know, we've gone to Honduras, we've built wells, we do at least 2 houses a year down in Mexico with other organizations, not just Youth of the Nation. And when you're down there and you're getting dirty and you're covered in whatever, you're not sitting with your camera saying, "Hey, check it out." And that's not my character anyway.
Yeah.
But I am learning that unless people know what you're doing, how are you going to raise money to do that? So we're trying the best that we can, and on social media we have some videos, and we stay as involved as we can, but the big picture is going to take a lot of money.
I mean, if you're dealing with a lot of kids, I mean, I'm sure there's one that wants to become a social media something or other. They've got a camera and they can edit, and they can probably do a lot. You know, you just find that kid's probably with you in Honduras. You're just not tapping into it.
Yeah. Or it's called an intern.
Or that too.
I need an intern from the local college, and then you're going to work for free for 2 weeks. You get the credit.
Right. Well, speaking of your hometown, things like that, you have a Sonny Sandoval Day, which I think is amazing. June 23rd, which you also said was your mother's birthday. And then I was actually looking more into it, and I guess your mother passed away even before P.O.D. was a thing. So she was never able to see any of this stuff. So awesome that it was, that it's on her birthday, and you because in the I will listen to a little bit of the speech on it. And the way you shouted out your mom, it sounded like she was there. Like it wasn't like a solemn, and it's my mom's birthday, whatever. It was like she was sitting front row. So that was.
Oh, thanks, man. That's awesome, bro. Yeah, we haven't even really brought that up, but to say that means a lot. Yeah, it's a special day. Still don't know why San Diego did it, but I'm grateful, and it was a complete surprise to me. Because it was my buddies and the city that kind of organized it on this special day to make it official, and so it's just super cool. You know what I mean? I love this city, and anybody that knows me knows how much I represent this city. It's been in our music. It's on my skin. It's everywhere. You know what I mean? So I love being from San Diego.
Yeah, there's definitely a few bands where you associate them with certain towns, and obviously P.O.D. is always a San Diego band. Talk a little bit about San Diego and kind of growing up there, and why you love it so much. Like what was it about growing up there that kind of shaped you?
I mean, I don't know anywhere else. You know what I mean? So you might have someone, obviously everybody loves where they're from, but we're just such a diverse city. You know what I mean? We're a border town where you can go surfing in the morning and then go snowboarding at nighttime. You know what I mean? We're 70 degrees average all year around. We're 2 hours away from LA, so we're not Hollywood. You know what I mean? We're like our own little world, but we have every culture, every nationality here. It's a melting pot. We haven't experienced all the different separations and all this stuff, that you see elsewhere. It's like in my neighborhood, there was every color. It wasn't about race. It was just, man, if we live on the same street, we're the same. It's an economic thing. You know what I mean? If we're all living in the hood, then we're all together. So. But like I said, it's a music town, it's a beach town. It's got everything. I always tell people it's a great place to visit, but you don't want to live there.
Obviously, you getting a Sonny Sandoval day. Was there any issues in the band? They're like, what about a WUV day? What about a Trey day? Marcos day? Like, what's going on?
Nah, I mean, I think we all have our own characters, and everybody kind of knows their lane. You know what I mean? And so, Marcos and Trey, they were all stoked for me because we all know each other's lane, and they know that this is my heart. You know what I mean? It's always been part of my resume, and it always will be. I find joy in serving and helping people, and it's just part of my character, And so to be able to do that, and then now even to get more involved in certain things, it's a good feeling.
You should also be like, hey, I'm the singer. You should have been the singer, not the bass player.
That's what you get for being the bass player.
Right. Last quick thing, man. I was kind of going back and I was thinking about, you guys on soundtracks, things like that. Obviously, the Little Nicky thing popped up. How cool is that for you to see, P.O.D. songs like in movie trailers and movies, and even, the Little Nicky kind of crossover with the video, and just kind of seeing it out there in the world, maybe even commercials, things like that?
It's always cool. I mean, nowadays it's more common. Back then it was huge. It's like, what? Adam Sandler knows our band. You know what I mean? Right. They want us to be a part of a movie like that. Back then it was like hitting the lotto. Now it's like we're so used to. There's no mystery anymore. We're so used to seeing each other. Everybody's got a phone that records. And streaming, all this stuff. But back then, to get a song played on the radio or to have it in a video game, that was all new and fresh back then. So it was, like I said, it was like hitting the lotto. So it never gets old. I still now, we watch Monday Night Football, or, you're watching sports, and all of a sudden you'll hear it in the background, and it just brings a smile to your face. Cause it's like, that's cool, man. There's all kinds of different ways that people could still appreciate your music. And so it'll never get old.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to kind of think, and obviously, I know you grew up listening to punk and things like that, and I also, had my phases back in the '90s and whatever, and back then it was like, sell out, not all this other nonsense, and then, but now you've got younger, hardcore bands getting played in Taco Bell commercials and things like that. Like that would have never happened in the '90s. You weren't going to hear Sick of It All in a Taco Bell commercial, but now it's like. the record industry being what it is, I mean, you kind of got to get it where you can get it,
No, all us old school guys that thought that way. And then now when you can see, you look hindsight and you look forward and you're like, and I know speaking for myself and in a lot of our own peers where you're so punk rock to a point that you're like, you sometimes, not saying you miss the boat, because, at the end of the day, a lot of us are just going to die being the originals or the pioneers, or, hey, I put these things first in my life. You know what I mean? That's it. And you accept that and you live with it. But nowadays you look back, and that's one thing I tell like my son and like they're all teenage kids and they're playing now. It's like, it's one thing to be original and pioneers, but don't be so closed-minded to right now that everything is, I'm just so punk or I'm so about this, that you don't really look at every opportunity and every chance you have. Because I still do. I mean, and there's a lot of things that I know, now that's sellout, but there's a lot of things that were very questionable. Would have been like, that wasn't necessarily sellout, and that could have actually paid for my kid to go to college. Right. You know what I mean? So you're like, oh, well, missed that one,
Yeah, no. I think the first time I really thought that times were changing was when I started hearing Henry Rollins do like Verizon commercials. And I think he did like some Mercedes voiceover, because he did voiceover for a lot of that stuff, 10 or 12 years ago. And I was just like, man, times are changing.
I don't know. Maybe it's wisdom, but I think the same thing. Like when how many, I've walked into boutiques, not walked in, I've walked past boutiques everywhere, and you'll see Slayer, Slipknot, and on these $600 shirts, and I'm like, they know about it. They know about it. Okay, don't tell me how. Whenever these bands are so metal, they know about it, and at least hopefully, and I'm assume that it was licensed, and then they're making serious money off it. Yeah. So, and I could sit there and be like, but I could also be like, hey man, put your kids through college, man.
Right. How do I get a $600?
Hey, I only wish they wanted P.O.D in their little bougie boutique,
Yeah, you got to walk in and be like, hey,
I'm just jealous. Yeah, I'm just jealous. I'm like, freaking sellouts. I'm like, dang it. Those guys, they figured it out somewhere.
Awesome. Well, let's end up with some kind of the upcoming touring plans, things like that. I mean, you guys are kind of nailing all the festivals. I see you're doing some side shows with Mudvayne. I mean, it sounds like it's shaping up to be pretty good 2024 for you guys.
Yeah, most definitely, man. With the new record comes 2 years of touring. So we'll do this US run, and then in June we'll head over to Europe and do some of the festivals. We'll hit the States again, continuing with the cool festivals. I know South America's hit us up. If we're not back in Europe at the end of the year, the beginning of 25. So it's cool, man. That's the cool thing about putting out new music for us. It creates other opportunities. Some bands don't even have to put out music. They just keep touring, and that's, God bless them. For us, we enjoy putting out new music, but second of all, it just gives us more opportunity to keep going out and doing what we love.
Yeah, hopefully. I posted a while back when that video of Limp Bizkit from Argentina came out, and I was just like, dude, if I ever start another band or any of my old bands get back together, we're only playing South America. Like the passion and the crowds 100%. Are so always amazing down there, man.
100%. Yeah. Economically, if you could make it work, you know what I mean? It's just all kind of different loopholes, but when you get down there, you're like, oh, these crowds are amazing, man.
Yeah. It always looks great. Well, Sonny, man, I just want to say thank you for taking some time today. And this was fun, man.
Oh, appreciate it, man. It's good seeing you again, bro.
Nice. Once again, Veritas out May 3rd, and Sonny Sandoval, just thanks for taking some time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, brother. We'll see you.
See you.